G'day, Shah here once again with Four Wheels on the Road, helping you get the most out of your time away. This week we're taking a bit of a look at the King's Escape swag. We're going to check out all of its features and see what it's got to offer you. Let's take a look. So what we're going to do today is go through a few of the features and how this swag is actually set out and how it all works, and what that's actually going to raise in the time that we're actually taking a look at it is a couple of things that I really like and also a couple of things that I really don't like at all about this type of swag. There's plenty to cover today and we've got a very short amount of time to do it, so let's get into it. So before we take a look at the King's swag, what we need to do is do a quick overview of what all of the different swags are and take a look at what the differences between them are as well. Depending on where you look and what information you look at, there are basically three different types of swags that are on the market. First of all, you've got your traditional swag, which is one that just lays on the ground and you just open and close the flap and that's it. They basically come with no poles, no mess and no fuss. The second of which is a triangular swag, and that's basically what the swag that we're looking at today is. What it tends to come with is some sort of pole at the head end and a simple pole in the middle and at the end as well. Not everybody actually uses the poles for these, and you can actually use them very similar to a traditional swag if you like as well. Those types of swags are not really the most popular in Australia. What seems to be the most popular in Australia, and especially here in Queensland at the moment, is the newer types of swag, and they're actually called a dome swag. Now, they're quite easy to set up and they're very similar to what a tent is. And there's a pole structure that actually keeps the canvas off you, and it actually keeps a structure set up. So you don't have to rely on pegging in a whole heap of pegs to hold the poles up, similar to what you do in a triangular swag. There are also different types that you can have attached to a stretcher bed and whatnot as well, but we're not looking at those today. And basically when you're talking about swags that rest on stretcher beds, they're the same as the first three that we mentioned. So if you're familiar with swags at all, probably the first thing you'll actually notice is that there are three separate poles here that are holding up the swag. So that means you've got to peg down each of the corners and each of the ropes. And there are different types of swags as well which have a pole which goes up through the middle. To be honest, that's probably what I would prefer, but what we wanted to do is take a look at this particular one, the Escape, and sort of see what it's got in terms of features. And there are quite a few interesting and really cool things that I do like about it that not a lot of other swags have. Next to the features that I wanted to take a look at that I actually really do like about this particular swag is it's got a Velcro lock on the flap that opens up for the top here, and there's a fly screen underneath it and also a zip as well. Now there are some good and some bad things about that which we'll get into later, but the one thing I really wanted to focus on right now is the fact that there is a fly screen in here, so while you're laying in here you can sit and look up at the stars, and if it's hot, it's something that's going to come in particularly handy. Another one of the features of this particular swag as well is that, as well as having the mesh on the top that we just mentioned before, you've also got a mesh window at the front and a lockable window, sort of lockable behind canvas as well. So some swags actually don't feature just the mesh window, or they don't even have a window at all, but this actually has a window for the canvas window here and also a mesh window as well, and you'll see from these little tabs here that you can actually roll those up and keep those away nice and safe and secure if you don't want to have them sort of flapping around the place. Another one of the things that's a really big feature of this particular swag as well is the base that's on it. So it's going to give you water protection and protection from the elements and from moisture coming up underneath out of the grass, and also if there's any sweat that's underneath the swag while you've got it down as well, so something that's quite handy. Going now into another one of the things that I actually really do enjoy about this swag is it comes with a pretty good mattress included. As you'll see here, it's around about 1.5 inch mattress, It's not particularly firm, but it's not really that soft either. Just on laying on it, it's enough where it sort of feels like you're on something that's a little bit softer than the ground, which is what you're really after. Another big positive for this thing as well is you'll see here I'm able to get my knees up and elevated here with plenty of space to spare at the top. So even though the new generation swags have a little bit more in terms of height, they're around about the same height as what the entryway is here, which is probably around about a metre. All you really need, to be honest, is just enough to sort of have your knees up in the air, and that's about it. If you can semi-sit up at the top, that's probably all you're after. All you really want to do is just basically sleep in the thing, to be honest, and perhaps sort of get changed as well. And you can do that quite sufficiently in here. There's tons of room and you can put your knees up quite comfortably, and you've got a lot of depth as well. Another advantage that you may not actually think of, but you know, that's what we're trying to do, is give you little things to think about, is that you can actually just slip the mattress in and out as easy as that, because you're not dealing with the post that comes across the top. You can just grab it in and out really, really easily. So that's another plus as well. So even though today, just for the purposes of demonstration, I don't actually have this pegged in, what this highlights for me is that you've got to peg everything in, and it's a pain in the butt. In terms of the swag, bear in mind at all times that there are different types of swags that will suit you for different needs. This sort of swag here is a little bit of a border between a swag and a tent, but not quite as much as some of the ones that you'll see on screen here, which are the newer ones from Kings and other brands that have a pole that runs throughout the middle. But this is one of the things that sort of just annoys me a little bit about this particular generation of swags, is that firstly you've got to peg them all in, and secondly, as if you've got that pole that runs all the way across, basically what it does in conjunction with a pole at the end and a pole at the other end is it maintains the structure of the whole thing, so you don't need to worry about having it pegged down at all if you don't want. So that's the newer generation ones anyway, and that's just, you know, a little positive and a negative for this particular generation and this particular type as well. Now, we mentioned this previously as a positive, but also it is a little bit of a negative, and that is this particular canvas flap here that goes all the way across the top. What you've got to do in order to tuck it up nicely is fold it and then actually find where the Velcro is underneath. And as you'll see in your pictures here, the canvas doesn't actually fit 100% sort of snug on the outside. There's a little bit of overflow, and you've got to go through a little bit of a pain in the butt of zipping the thing up, and it gets a little bit annoying, to be honest. So that's one of the downsides for this particular thing, I'd have to say, definitely. So what you end up with is this loose flap here just kind of hanging over the top. It's a little bit annoying at times, and if it gets windy or anything like that, this thing could blow up and you could end up with water getting in underneath, particularly if you're in a storm. So in terms of setting it up and packing away, there's probably not really a lot of difference between, you know, a Kings brand and any other brand, and not a lot of difference between this particular type of swag and any of the newer generation ones either. Your older generation ones that don't have any poles, of course, are going to be a lot easier to pack up. You can just sort of fold them up and they're done. But as I mentioned at the beginning, we're sort of dealing with something that's a little bit of a hybrid between a tent and a swag, but not quite as tent-like as your new swags are. All right, well, that's going to wrap things up for us here this week. Let me know what you think of the Kings Escape swag in the comments down below. Also, don't forget to like, subscribe, and most importantly, share the channel. I really do appreciate that. And we'll see you next time we get 4 wheels on the road.